Okay, here at number one, numero uno, the difference between a player like Damian Lillard, the only reason he's not number one in this league is because the player at number one is a generational player. He has a potential to be the best all time. Actually, he's got the potential to be the greatest. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying he'll get there. He has the potential to be there. At worst, he's a top 10 player in this league. He'll never get underneath that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who...
It's incredible. We have Luka Doncic at number one. What a great player. Great young kid.
Yeah, he's a guy who, it seems like when he came out of the draft, he obviously fell from number one because there were some people who were skeptical on him coming out, whether he could actually replicate the success we've seen in the leagues overseas whenever he came over. And it's a guy today, if you redid that draft, anyone would have taken him number one. Even if you're a team like Sacramento, who felt like they needed to pick the best player at the position, if they knew there was a chance to even get Luka Doncic through a trade, they easily would have traded that Marvin Bagley trade. So it's not something where anyone in the draft, if they had an option, maybe they would do it. It's an option where absolutely they would do it. Atlanta would not.
Looking back, you'd give away your first round, your best player on your team, and the number two overall pick to get a player like Luka Doncic.
Yeah, Atlanta would not do that trade over. I mean, if they did, they'd be absolutely crazy. It's a guy who, in every category, was essentially top 10 for point guards. Third in points, first in rebounds, tied for second in assists, first in efficiency.
In every category, across every position, he was top 10.
Yeah, I mean, fourth highest value added in the whole league. So, yeah, that definitely speaks to it alone, and that's in comparison to, I believe he was even better than a guy like Giannis, if I'm not mistaken, in that regard.
Fourth in value added, and the guy plays passable average defense at best.
Yeah, exactly. He did have, like you're saying, one of the best offensive RPMs, and that's obviously allows him to maybe suffer a bit on the defensive end, but offensively, he just has so many tools in his arsenal. Like I said in the other video, of course, Miller's a great scorer, but in terms of just never knowing what he's going to do next, the unpredictability factor, Luka Doncic is just unsurmountable in that regard. He just can't. No one could replicate what he has the potential to do on the court other than a guy like LeBron James. And even then, when he gets in the air, because LeBron is older and he's obviously bigger, just being crafty in terms of getting almost like an underhand layup or whatever it is.
Luka's more creative.
Absolutely. So there's just elements to his game that we know probably make him top 5 NBA. If we just pick the top 5 players, just one through all the positions, some people would definitely agree Luka is top 5 NBA. Probably more likely top 10 because guys like Kawhi and Durant, but overall, definitely.
I think Luka is a better player than Kawhi and Durant right now, and I think next year is going to show it. I don't think Luka. I don't think Durant's ever put up an offensive year anywhere close. I know he's a better defensive player, but he's putting up years like Russell Westbrook was a couple of years ago, but efficiently, and putting up more assists. And he's in his second year in the NBA. He's going into his third year in the NBA. Third year. This is usually the year where people make the biggest jump. This is his third year. What kind of jump can he make outside of defensively? There's no I'm way too young to ever watch Oscar Robertson play. I've watched a little bit of his highlights and I've read a lot about him. And to me, Luka has that creativity like someone like the Big O did. I mean, he grabs the boards and leads the league in assists, and he will for probably the next 10 years. And then you throw in a shooting ability on the level of Kevin Durant. And I know he's not the tallest player. He's more of a shooting guard for guarding people. He'll guard probably the weaker person. But in all reality, like that Dallas team is so set up with Luka and KP, Porzingis. Doncic and Porzingis are just going to dominate this league for the next 10 years. And outside of Giannis, and LeBron right now, he's still one of the best players on the planet, but in a year or two, like over the next 10 years, outside of Giannis, Luka is the best player in the league.
Yeah, I mean, with those guys getting older, like you said, it definitely gives him a lot of leeway to jump into definitely one of the top 3 spots in the NBA, especially too if he does start to have the playoff runs, ends up obviously winning a championship, which is very possible, especially if a guy like KP stays healthy and they do have a good team around him. But it's definitely a big factor that he does, I think, need KP there for some of the success, where, like you said, in terms of maybe putting him above a guy like Durant, of course, his assist numbers, of course, are going to be higher, but at the same time, Durant had multiple 30-point per game years, including a 32-point per game year. So I don't think Doncic necessarily career-wise is at his level yet, because again, he did average over 4 turnovers per game. If you take his assist to turnover ratio, it is just above over 2, which isn't that great to be honest. So it's an area where he still has room to improve, but that's why he's number one, because even in a year where he was so great, he still has room to improve. He could easily be a 30, he could easily be a triple double guy who also puts up 30 per game, which is something that we haven't heard of from except for guys like Oscar Robertson and Russell Westbrook, like you mentioned.
And that's just it, right? We don't know what he does things that nobody else can do, and the guy is second year in the league. I think it was Ryan Hollins that we seen, the ESPN analyst or NBA analyst, that former player that played with Doncic overseas, and came across and said after the draft and kind of laughed at everyone and said, guys, what are you guys doing? This guy's easily the number one overall pick. He should have been the most clear number one overall pick since LeBron James. He was that good of a player before he came to the NBA. People sleep on the EuroLeague. EuroLeague is better basketball than NCAA. I don't care how many Americans are watching this. Go watch EuroLeague basketball. It's a higher level of quality of play. There's professional players that are typically, they play a very, very smart brand of basketball. Most of these guys are typically between their mid-20s to late 30s, mid-30s. They're in the prime of their careers. They're people that have been playing basketball for 15, 20 years compared to the NCAA, where even the best team in the NCAA is still at times going to play a player who will, like, they're going to play on their bench who's not ever going to make a EuroLeague roster, who's not ever going to be a professional player outside of it. Like, the consistency 1 through 15 in EuroLeague is on another level compared to anything outside of the NBA. So the fact that we're sleeping on Doncic and he came over here and he's just proving us all wrong, it goes to show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy who's also not only been playing in the EuroLeague, but he's been doing it since he was 16. So, I mean, it's been 5 years since he's been playing it at professional level basketball, essentially. And that's why he is so much more mature than so many guys who are going into their third year, where we obviously know guys like Trey Young are great players. But guess what? He was number 10 on his list. And you know why we had him number 10? Because he's so immature as a player. You can't say the same about Luka, because he's a guy who already had the Mavs seeming like a team that a lot of people want to jump on that bandwagon. And
Yep.
ride them out as a potential sleeper team to sneak into a deep playoff run even this year and even last year. So many people are high on them. He's a guy who gets drafted as a shooting guard slash small forward, and now he's playing point guard.
Okay.
You could put him anywhere just
He's
because,
essentially LeBron James, but not as athletically gifted
yeah, but
and a better shooter,
yeah, and like we said, he makes up for it by being just that much more creative.
creative.
Yeah, what he lacks in the athleticism department makes up for somewhere else. There's a lot of critique even about his weight gain, but I mean, it doesn't, like, that's just, everyone looks different when they get weight, right? Like, he could be building muscle and it looks differently. We don't know that. We just don't know. I wouldn't doubt Luka Doncic until he's actually on the court in the regular season, and neither of us are doubting him based on the fact we have him number one.
Yep, I can't agree with you more. To me, he's a sleeper MVP candidate, which is crazy to say the word sleeper before that, because the guy puts up 30, 10, and 10 in his second year.
Yep.
Like, we're talking about earlier about how LeBron James is so good and has been so good ever since he started. He was not this good in the second year. Like,
Yeah.
I get Luka has a better team around him, but that being said, like, Dallas is still a playoff team. They're still a successful team. Like, Luka has brought success there.
Yeah, I would say if I had to put money on an MVP, as long as Dallas makes the playoffs, he would be my pick. Where we talked about it with LeBron, where you do get the voters do get voter fatigue, and you want to see other
Yeah.
guys win it.
Giannis is not going to win this year.
Exactly, he's won it 2 in a row. And unless I mean they have like a 72 and 10 year, and Giannis just blow out 34 and 15, or just some insurmountable year, it's just not going to happen again. I don't think, and my money would probably go on Luka if he
It's
has.
not 2K.
Exactly. If he has any year similar to this year or better, he would be my lock as long as that team makes the playoffs.
I don't see how he doesn't get better. He's only gotten better every year. His first year, it took time to adapt to the NBA speed. His second year, he finally had a running mate in KP. KP was coming off of an injury. Porzingis hadn't played in 2 years. It took a little bit of time to get the chemistry built up. By the time the playoffs came, they were together. That team was great. They were a solid team. I actually put them probably third seed next year. And that's given the fact that they haven't even traded for a third star yet, which it looks like they will. Remember, Porzingis and Hardaway Jr. were together. They were one of the worst teams in the league when they played for the Knicks. Now, like I'm talking them to be better than any team in the Western Conference that aren't in LA.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely number 3 is definitely high hopes for them.
Doncic's going to have a great year. I have nothing but confidence.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I was just talking there. So there we are. Doncic is number 1. Positional rankings are done. Next time we're going to have to rank a top players in the league overall, just so we can have a bit more intense of a battle. Because every single position, it was a clear-cut number 1 in every single position except for center. Clear cut. And I love to see how these guys rank up against each other, because there's no one at a point guard that's anywhere close to Luka Doncic right now. There's no one at a small forward that's anywhere close to LeBron James. There's no one at shooting guard anywhere close to James Harden.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, even with center, it was a unanimous decision. We both had the same guy at center winning. We had that at every single position.
Every single position.
Exactly. Versus in, like you said, top 5 NBA, I'm sure LeBron James would probably still get it based on LeBron. But when it gets to every single other player, it
we can argue.
Definitely gets down to a lot of different factors. But with that being said, before we even get into that, maybe that's something that, like you said, we restructure our list next year, take a different strategy.
Maybe we'll do a mid-year rank.
Definitely. But with that being said, we are looking to do some team previews. They are going to be released by the end of this week, so definitely check that out. And with 2020 coming to an end too, maybe we'll take that strategy and we'll do a top 50 players of the top 2020 or something along those lines too.
Yeah, who knows, right? The future is limitless. We want you guys along for the ride to subscribe, like, comment. The more you guys like and comment, the more our videos get recommended. The happier we get, the more effort we put into our videos.
Yeah.
So put them out there, guys. Come on board, watch them all. Like, we're at about 120 or 130, if not probably 150 or 60 at this point of videos. So with that being said, hop on them. We have content. Subscribe, watch them all. Bring us in the limelight.
And that's all. Have a good one.
Thanks.